It's time. The Ginkgo Biloba, we're going to find out what we can do with them now that these leaves are starting to drop. We're also going to find some of your fantastic viewer photographs. A whole pile have built up and there's some cracking bonsai to see. And we're also going to do something just for you, Chad Van Ryn. Wanted to know all about red oaks. And I'm going to explain why I think they are such an impossible species to try and bonsai. But not only that, heads up, guess where I'm going to be on Sunday? I'm actually going to make it to the Heathrow Bonsai Show, but more of that in a minute. So I'm going to promise you we're going to have some fun with the ginkgo, we're going to have some fun with your photos, we're going to have some fun with red oak, but best of all, I'm in a hurry. I've got to get ready for tomorrow, so this video is not going to be that long.
Can you believe that?
Hi, yeah, it's Xavier. Welcome to my bonsai retreat, and I don't know if I'm more excited to be dealing with the ginkgo or because I've got a last minute call from Alex Braunton who asked if I'd like to go to the Heathrow Bonsai Show on Sunday. So naturally, knowing it's going to be the right day this time, I'm going to make sure I'm going to be there. So straight away, anyone who's going to the Heathrow Bonsai Show, if you actually want to speak to me or if you actually want to answer some of my questions, then just sort of wave a bit or tug at me like this. You know, if you've seen me before, I chat. I don't mind if you quietly make faces like that or anything so that I talk to you. But hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm going to get a chance to interview and perhaps do some video of me chatting to you, asking loads of really great bonsai questions. So we'll do the ginkgo. In between that, I'm going to go through I've got a load of your viewer photographs of your bonsai, so we're going to be showing those. Then, for the sake of Chad, we're going to do a little bit about the red oak at the end. I reckon that sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of interest, and let's crack on with these, shall we? Because there's not that much to actually do. Look at these. First of all, we've obviously got to get these lovely yellow leaves off. So what we're going to do is we're going to work through them one by one. If you love ginkgo, you're going to see every single one I've got, and this one was one of the earliest or the first ones that you saw me wire way back in 2022. Probably the fourth episode I did. Since then it's been repotted, and I think I'll say straight away the interesting thing before we take the leaves off is, you know, when I did my pruning, I think my post-flush hardened pruning, there are several points. It's interesting, I wasn't sure whether we'd get a second flush or not, and I was also talking to you about the risk of dieback. And I think it's lovely because we can have a look certainly up here where you can see where I did the cut, and the bud beside it is nice and green, but it didn't actually flush out, but it also didn't die. So that was about 1 centimetre on it, but actually if you look just behind it, there's actually a bud here that's formed, and that's really good news. So we're going to have 2 from that point. And then equally we can go higher up and we've got this one here again. There's 1 centimetre or so of, that I allowed for dieback, and we've got a nice healthy bud there. So definitely I think it works to give yourself that centimetre or so above the cut site, and if you're really lucky you'll also get an extra buds on there. In terms of health, it's nice and happy, but also it's very interesting to see if we actually work further up and have a look and see if we've got any back budding. I said to you that ginkgo do tend to just back bud on bare wood. I often say for no apparent reason, but right up here we can see a little micro bud that's just starting to pop its little brown head out. We know how much we like those brown heads, so let's keep an eye on that for spring. It's in a Dawn Isaac ceramic, absolutely gorgeous, and all we need to do is remove some leaves, and as I say, these should now just fall without any effort at all, he says, quite happily. And I want to go through my decisions on how and why and where I'm pruning back to, so that I can optimize the growth I'm going to get next spring. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know full well 3 phases: base, trunk, unwanted stuff. So let's get into this very bare animal. What I'm looking, and in this instance what I'll be looking at is just getting rid of any of these old roots that have had their day. Just neaten this whole top section up, because everything I really want is already down in the soil. So we can get rid of a lot of these. And it's amazing when you start actually having a bit of a feel around with your fingers. It's amazing what you can pull up. So we'll get rid of this stuff. Actually, there's quite a lot there that's dead. That one's still hanging on. That's not. Gosh, I think that's actually dead. That's dead. Although many of you think, oh, it's terrible losing so many of these, actually that suits me, because I want to try and keep a lot of this clear and sorted out. Anyway, I'll go around and keep pulling those out. In terms of the roots, interesting set of roots actually from the front here. I've kept the moss on there because I quite like the way that is. It actually fills in gaps. The back set of roots, very, very interesting. As you can see, it's all from one clump basically. I don't know whether it was ever single trees to begin with, but amazing. Yeah, that could actually be a great example of fusion, can it? But there is part of me that thinks they were separate trees. But anyway, that's what we've got. Now these classically form what you call that nice flame shape. And the question you're going to ask me now, or the question I'm certainly going to pose to you is, do I need to prune this back very far at all? Because we could argue that what we do is we allow all these buds to open out and create a tree which is going to be well above here. And normally if it was young, I'd be more than happy to let it continue to flush out, just so long we didn't have any occasions where we had more than two branches, two whatevers together. And here it's clearly we've got to find different trunks coming out of this. So all I really need to decide is where we're going with it. And we can see here clearly the direction the buds are going to come out next year. I can probably now just shorten off some of these stubs that have formed. It's all dried off and dead up there. And now we need to have a look at this and see where is the future, because these are quite tall, and this coming down, there's no bud back here, which is what I'd really want. We've got 1, 2, 3 buds there, so I can definitely take the top off that. We've got 1, 2, take the top off that. So we've brought it to the height here. If we leave, we've got 1 here, but I'm just concerned how far out that is, and the fact that that one there is going to cross this one. So I'm actually going to remove that. Then again, we look here, we've actually got the horizontal bud, and then the one that goes further on is actually going to go up and away. That's going to create this big U shape, so I don't want that. So again, I'm going to remove that. If you look here, we've actually got 1, 2 buds. That's perfect. We'll get rid of that. You look at the height. Probably need to bring that one down actually, so we'll get rid of that bud there. Now the next decision really comes down to bud orientation on this one here. We've got a bud here that's going to come towards, out that way, nothing more than this one's going to come straight at us, so we can already say we'll cut back to there. It's just looking to see whether there's any other buds that are going to come. I mean here, 1, 2, 3. Definitely we've got 2 halves. I'm happy to have this. Potentially we're going to have a bud coming out from here. So although we've clearly got a different some different sizings on there, I'm just going to put a little bit of cut paste on some of these wounds. Again, I'd rather be careful, safe than sorry, and just... Yeah, Ginkgo can be an interesting one because you can spend years trying to get buds in the right place, and it does exactly what it wants to do when it wants to do it. And I mean, it's like this one hasn't really produced anything new for a few years, just a couple going upwards. These have actually been quite productive, and what I'm really waiting for, I think I said it last year, is something to appear on the back here. As has happened here, we've got a bud that's now appearing here. So it can often feel like one step forward, 2 steps backward, but that is still going to look lovely. It's still going to develop as a nice flame. It's going to be asymmetrical, lower here, higher here. I think it could be very interesting, and ultimately with the ginkgo, you've got to be patient. As you know, I've got the overwintering Jadam spray, Jadam sulfur spray, and I will say now, someone asked me a question, I think in response to, in fact I said I was worried it might whiten the bark, and I got Gary kept back in contact with me and said the whole advantage with this Jadam sulfur is it doesn't have the lime in it. It's not lime sulfur, it's Jadam sulfur, and it's the lime apparently that whitens the bark. So although this is already white, I mean, this is the site of a wound that I've been slowly nibbling down each year, and I think I nibbled that beginning of this year down to there. It's not particularly attractive, but as you can see, there's no, what you'd be looking for is a collar to turn around and say it's alright to nibble it further, and no collar has formed there. So rather than at this time of the year risk it and cut it down with a really big wound, I'll wait till spring next year and then take that down a little bit further. The sun is literally streaming in over there. It's probably the last time we're going to see the sun this year, but I'm sure many of you will also remember this one. I'll put a little bit of wire on there to put some movement in, and we've actually got a little shoot growing up there now. So my aim was this to be a really interesting clump, and again you look at the whole fan of leaves over it and it actually looks pretty decent. So again, I'm just going to remove all our lovely leaves. Okay, well there we go, it's all divested of its leaves, and you can see now clearly the structure, and you know straight away, as you know with this one, it got heavily wire scarred. But interestingly enough, although the scars are still there, the way the bark has sort of slowly crawling in on it, it actually looks, I quite like it, it looks really sort of prehistoric and gnarled and been through the wars. But best in all, it's just showing how much it wants to live. Now, this one has got the wire on. You know I would have put that wire on probably 4 months ago now. I've had a little look. There's no scarring at all, and I did just try and take the top off. It immediately wanted to bounce back in shape. So I'm going to leave that right through the winter. That shouldn't be a problem. This has continued to grow up, and I'm just going to put a little bit of wire onto that. So we'll take a firm I don't know, something like that for now. Again, the thing with this is all I want to do is make sure that it's still spreading out. Once those things start to shoot out in spring, it'd be interesting to see. Definitely, having looked at how the previous one worked out with wire, I don't honestly see the wire holding that shape, but I keep trying. And in terms of pruning, well, it's interesting because actually, this is the first time I've seen, if you actually look at the top here, there's an absolute curmudgeon of buds that are coming out, which would probably be great if it was lower down, but you imagine the cartwheel problems we're going to have when those buds start to swell. So the thing I'm going to do, although I can't do it now, we're going to get a great big fat knuckle on there. It may well be actually, looking at the height of this, that top may well get taken off and just use it right now for thickening. So we'll actually use these lower buds as the stuff that we're going to work on in 2026. Actually, I might just take that top one off. So if you look at it, we've got a nice bud coming this way, then that way. There's nothing at the back, and then we get this second one almost like a U-bend. Well, it's going to be like one shoot that way, another shoot parallel to it. And it's not, ideally if it was coming this way I'd be happy, but for spluttering away. In fact, there's a little nodule there, we may get a bud from that. I'm going to just take that top off. So that's about all I intend to do with that one, and this is still very early days. I want this to really flush out. Just want to make sure we've got no obvious conflictions. Now for the yellow stuff. Now this is definitely an interesting one, so I'm going to just talk briefly about this one. Again, many of you who've been in my channel for a good many years, you'll know this one was, I think at one point, quite close to being not so well and not so alive, and it was because I'd actually had it planted in one of these for many years. And though you think that's probably going to be fine for it, the thing about the Ginkgo, it's a bit like the Dawn Redwood. It throws, in fact it's like the larch, it throws out loads and loads of roots, and very quickly gets pot bound. And it just wasn't a big enough pot for it. And I'd probably say this to you now, if you've got your Ginkgo in small pots, probably not quite so small as that little Marmee one that you saw me put together earlier this year, but if it's in a small pot or something that's that sort of size, that probably fits in the category of annually repot, check the roots, trim back, as you would your Dawn Redwoods. So this one was one of the first ones to go in a pond basket, and I just wanted it to recuperate, and I think you can see there has been such a long, large flush of growth on this that I'm really happy. It's definitely achieved aim one, which is to bring it back to full vitality and health. And I was hoping to see whether or not we might get some buds. Close in here, you have got a little bump, there's a bump there, which that definitely looks like could be a bud, and in this tree that would be absolutely ideal. There's also several lower down like that, and that's what you're looking for on these Ginkgo, these little bumps. That's definitely, I'm sure that's going to be a bud. We'll watch that with joy. This branch here is far too long. Got nice buds there, so we're going to cut right back. I don't want this stuff all flushed up right up here out of camera shot. Got little buds down here. I'm probably just going to cut it to there. Yeah, if you look, we've actually got some nice little micro buds, 1, 2. So with that in mind, I can shorten that one right off, and again, as you know, I'll seal the ends. What I will say with this one is very much like you saw at the base down here, how there was what looks like is going to be a future bud developing. There are several on these longer branches which have also got really noticeable bumps on them, and that'll suit me down to the ground if we get some new buds from closer in, so I can actually get hopefully something around here rather than all the way up here. Again, I think you probably look at that and say this is the third different style of Ginkgo that I've done, and the one thing I'll say with my collection, they're all very different. So I was thinking, I know Chad, you want to see the red oak, but I'm going to leave that for the end. So while I'm removing the leaves off the rest of those Ginkgos, why don't we all sit back, cup of coffee, cookie, biscuit, whatever, and let's enjoy some of your incredible bonsais and your journeys with bonsai.
the second of my bigger Celtis. This one is about 55 years old.
Well, hopefully you all got as much enjoyment out of those subscriber photos as I did. There's some incredible things going on out there, and thank you so much for sharing that with me. It goes without saying that these come on every 6 to 8 weeks. If you want to get your bonsai on my wall of fame, so to speak, then all you need to do is send your pictures to expressionsbonsai@gmail.com, and if you can remember to name what the trees are, then that helps me, because those of you who know me know that my bonsai ID and species ID is pretty appalling. But yeah, thanks again for that, and hey, we've got another Ginkgo, and this one is extremely interesting, and yeah, it's extremely healthy too, but what to do with it I really don't know, because I think I mentioned once that I was going to try and make it into a cascade. Do you hear that? Not only do we have the Chinese elm bonsai police, we also have the Ginkgo bonsai police. They're on the way to do me for something to do with this. And I'd love to try and do a cascade, but even I have to admit, there's one thing that Ginkgo love to do. They love to form flames. They love to go upwards. I really don't think that'll work. So my only option, I think, is going to be that. And try and get it up on some sort of angle like that. So I'm going to prune it like that, and hopefully when I do a repot, they have so many roots, I'm probably going to be able to change the potting angle. So I've got a bud there, no bud there, so I want to have two, so that means we'll get rid of that one. I think it's one each side there. This one, there's a bud out there, and if we just come in close here, there's going to be a bud down there. We've got one there and one there, so that's probably the bud I really want, so we'll just cut to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, let's get rid of there. What an interesting shape. Still not fully sure which way I'm going with it, but do you know what, when you walk in and you see it in a pot, you're going to look at it because it looks different from what you expect. So that's what bonsai is for me, and hopefully for many of you too. A couple of people do ask me, oh, you know that cutting you put in soil, and said, let's see how that'll be later in the year. Well, I know, I'm sure I did it with the Ginkgo earlier this year, and that one I think was one actually from last year, and that's looking nice and healthy in its pond basket. But these two were definitely cuttings that I took this year, and they're doing very well, and indeed that's still green on that. So the Ginkgo really do root well, and they also root pretty well now. So what I'll do is I'll whack that in some soil, and tell you what, in spring, well, probably not spring, but later in the year, next year, should we find out whether or not that indeed roots. I know the rules say it probably shouldn't, but I bet it does. Now this one is actually, again, an interesting one. It just goes to show there's the big cut happened here. The wound is just not rolling over at all. So all I'm going to do, same sort of thing. I'm looking at where the buds are. That's a problematic bud, but we could have one coming out from there. So all I'm going to do, one, cut the edges there. We've got a nice one there. We'll get rid of the top there. Happy with what we've got there. This one, I don't like it, so I'm actually going to just take the bud off. Killing that, so to speak, may well cause that to push. And if it doesn't, we'll remove that. There's potentially going to be another bud coming from there. Back branch, 1, 2, potentially 3. So we'll do that. There's a nice bud there, but then we have to go all the way up to there. So I'm actually going to cut that off there. Get something coming out that way. And as we follow that further up, we've actually got a bud at the front and a bud at the back, as well as the big fat area here. I'm going to have to remove one of those buds, but even worse, if you look at it, I've got this long straight area, no taper. I could actually think about removing the whole lot. Same here, I may well actually get rid of Get a change of direction there. I'll definitely do that change of direction. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 buds up there, and dependent, well, I'd probably keep the one at the back. That would be the one that goes. And I think this is the thing that I'd say to you, is where you can always look at little changes of direction and reduction in taper. So we've got very, very slight, this is a problematic bit, it is definitely. But if we go this way, rather than continuing that on, then we get change of direction and it actually tapers. Then we'll have a bud there or a bud there, which will then give us our next branch. Who knows, we may well get a nice bud come from somewhere around here. And I think that's really all we need to do today on that one. And I know, I've just remembered, I did say that I wasn't going to go piecemeal throw all of them. So I've got another 3 down there. I'll go and do the work on them and quickly show you how they look. Actually, thinking about it, I think I'd spoil you if I showed the other 4 Ginkgo. So rather than show them to you now, how about I persuade you to subscribe, share, all that great sort of stuff, in the knowledge that those 4 will make their appearance in the late winter, early spring. One of which I'm sure you're going to want to see, because it's pretty special and it definitely needs a change of potting angle. So go on then, Chad. Look what's sitting right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red oaks. Now I bought these as little 2-year-old saplings back in 2015, 2016 I think, and they have been such a slow grower, mainly because I've kept them in little pots like this. We know if one of them's grow big, straight into growing beds, bigger pots, but these stayed in small pots and have very, very slowly developed. But oh my gosh, with a leaf that size, which when you compare it to my hand, in fact they get bigger, some of these, it's impossible. I'm going to say it to you, anyone who quotes me otherwise, that has been impossible for me to reduce in any way, shape or form. And I found that the biggest problem is, even if you cut them off, very, very difficult I've found to get that second flush. Now I'm the first one to admit it could be because I haven't got them in big enough soil or big enough pots, and they're just so limited that they just don't have that store of energy necessary to produce that second flush. So anyone who's got experience of second flush red oaks, tell me now in the comments. So bear in mind, this is what, it says 10 years old, this tree, and look, it's got some really interesting movement and shape low down, but I think I struggle with the fact it takes so long. And I think if we remove the leaves, you'll, oh gosh, those leaves are still on there. I mean, it is amazing, just on one tree you've got that deep red, which is definitely the anthocyanin, I think. Then we move them further around, and then here you've still got the oranges and the yellows, and then finally we've actually here still got green, which is the chlorophyll, which means they're still producing something. Actually, you notice the leaves aren't actually falling off yet, and my rule with that, if they're not falling off, leave them. It's obviously wanted by the tree, so I have to come back to that one. But that has a very, very interesting shape. In particular here, I've got this lovely bend down here, moving up, set it up over a rock, and it's going to be interesting. But what I'm really looking for, and it's something I've found with the red oaks, is I want budding to come from down here, and these do bud readily. Like many oaks, they will do lots of bud points on lower stuff. So don't be surprised if this one ends up losing all of that and I end up growing something from down there. And we look, and we've got this one very much more, well, dare I say, graceful and almost feminine. Very, very elegant, some nice gentle curves. But again, the issue is that you have to go a very, very long way to bring it up, and it's frustrating because you just can't get it to do that second flush. How will I treat this? Well, the first thing we look at, like the other one, is I'm looking for buds lower down, and ideally with the movement that's there, probably want something somewhere around there. And if you look in there, we've got exactly what I need, and I'm just going to wait for those buds to pop. So to encourage that, I'm just going to prune some of this top growth, neaten it up, But I mean, even there's some nice movement, and there is definitely some taper in there. So I'm not writing off. I can get some buds up here. In fact, there's the bud. Don't know if you can see it right there. Beautiful bud there. In fact, there's another bud just there at the top of the picture. So though that is a lovely, elegant line, it's too tall. Unless I was going to bring that down as a literati, and I have had a play with that a few years ago, and I just cannot get these to come down that way. So I'm going to look at the fact that there's buds on here, little buds there, there's bud lower down, there's two buds there. So let's just do that. As I do with all of these, because I'm so reliant on getting those buds to activate, I do not want to risk them drying out and losing them. But it really is very, very slow. Patience, methodical, clip and grow. I definitely don't put wire on these. But this is the example I was talking. If we look lower down here, we've got this bud here, and indeed we've got two little buds waiting to go. So I don't think it goes much to say that what I'm actually going to do is that. And definitely oak and cuttings, not in a million years. So get some sealant on that. And finally we've got these two here, which have actually developed a little bit more struck drop top, probably because I actually had the common sense to put them into pots a few years ago. And again, the same issue. I mean, it's lovely. We've actually got some nice taper here, some nice movement here, and all I need to do is, wow, close in here, loads and loads of buds, is really just keep letting these develop. And there's really only one thing left to do. I'm going to give it the Jadam sulfur spray. Again, I haven't really found an issue with bugs on these, but in the interest of science, we might as well. I've got a bug just went straight up my nose then. You didn't see that, did you? Terrible. It occurred to me, you probably want to know exactly how the air layer that I just separated earlier this year is going on. Well, it's absolutely fantastic, and what is the big winner for it is, apart from the fact that I do love the shape, I've got on a rock because I'll change the angle in a couple of years' time, but if you look in closer, there are loads and loads of buds ready to spring forth in 2026, which has got to be yet another good reason to be watching and keeping an eye on my channel. Anyway, I've enjoyed today. It's gone longer than I thought it would. Hopefully, if you love ginkgo or red oak, this has really filled your tummy. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you tomorrow, or some of you hopefully, and probably best way of getting prepared for the show, which I'm sure I'm going to be showing on Tuesday, is to remind you about one of another really good shows I went to recently. Have a look. Well worth a reminder. That's the first ever Newark Bonsai Fest that took over from Doncaster. Otherwise, happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.